So first of all, to begin, I'd like to wish you all Tashi today. And so today, on the second day, as I mentioned yesterday, I'll give a brief account of the life and liberation of Gampopa. So I probably can't get through the entire life and liberation of Gampopa, so I'll probably have to go through the end of it tomorrow. However, since we do have some time, I think there's no problem. So there's an old Tibetan saying, if you don't know the history of your grandparents, you don't know where the children came from, it says. And so, as it says in this saying, if we don't know the history of our gurus and of our lineage, whether we're talking about whether a lineage or someone who's upholding lineage, there's a danger that we will have no source or authority for ourselves. And so I think it's important for us to understand, to know these stories of the great masters of that. So generally, when we talk about history or stories, it's like a big mirror in which we can see reflections that are like ourselves, but not only that. But we can also see things that we need to think about and things that we can take as examples for ourselves. For example, with the life and liberation of Gampopa, how is it that we ourselves can achieve the qualities of the Buddha? And so that they're not just a view but an aspiration, but something how we can actually practice it in a real human life. And it's like an example that gives us guidance. And so what gives us that in actuality are the life stories. So for that reason, in the Tibetan, we don't call the life stories of gurus histories, we call them liberation stories. And so the reason is that if the life stories or the liberation stories of the great masters, if they were only become a research topic or the topic for our conference, that would be a real loss. So these we have to have they need to be something that we followers need to bring to our practice, and we have to have the idea that we should do this and the steadfast courage that we should do it. This is extremely important. So generally, with Gampopa, there are over 40 stories of his life and liberation. Now, the main ones are if we take the ones written by his direct disciples as our basis, then we can have more confidence and trust in them, I believe. Now, among all the stories of life and liberation written by his direct disciples, the ones that are known that are best written are the written by Jepatma Drupma. It's a life story in verse, as in the form of a praise. And so that is one well-known one. There's another one. There's a life of Gampopa taught in the dialogues written down by Jedusum Khenpa. Also one's by Laya Changchuk Ngudrup. And there's also one by J. Baram. And so it is very important for us to just read these and to study these stories. Now, Lord Gampopa, with his date of birth, when was that? In Palmadrupa's praise of his liberation story, it says, from his birth in the female shipyard until he went to the place of emanation, it says. So as this says, so this means in the 11th century, it was in the 11th century. So he was born in 1079 in the region of Niel. This is in Tibet. And so this is in the district of Hokpa City district of Lunze. And so that's where he was born, or when he was born. Now, when he was young, he was known by the name of Dharmadra. And in some of them, he was called Dharmakyap, according to some of the stories. So he probably had a couple different names when he was a child. And from the age of 5, he began to learn how to read and write. And so when he reached the age of 7, because his father and grandfathers were doctors, his family was a medical family. And so at the age of 7, he began to study medicine from his father. And so he studied the healing arts, studying medicine. So one thing we need to understand at this here is that there are many well-known names for Gampopa, and so another name for Gampopa was Dapalhaje. So Haje means. So what Haje means doctor. As we say doctor in English, so it means a physician. It's like an honorific term for physician. In my own home region, even today, we don't call doctors anything but Haje. We don't call them doctors or physicians. We probably don't call them this at all. There's no custom of calling them that. Likewise, Gampopa was prophesied by the Buddha, and in these prophecies he was called the picture physician, right? So in talk, the picture physician should be understood to mean Dapalhaje. So there's the name Dapalhaje. And this is an important name for Gampopa. So basically, from his childhood onward, Gampopa studied medicine. And he had about 13 different teachers. And he came he reached the culmination of his studies and became a very skilled physician. Not only that, there are also well-known medical students, including Dapo Menakpa, who were his students. And so it is said that Gampopa himself wrote a medical treatise called A Summary of the 8 Branches. It's said that there is there, but this text is no longer extant. We can't get it. But there is still a text called the Shorter Text of Dakpa. So the person who compiled this collection was the Dr. Menakpa, and it primarily contains the Gampopa's writings about medicine, as well as his instructions on medicine, notes on his instructions on medicine. And this shorter text of Gampopa seems to have been written before the Four Tantras, which is the most well-known text of Tibetan medicine. So it's an important text for the research topic, or something important to study in terms of Tibetan medicine. It's also said that there are many important or well-known treatments of Tibetan medical practice that are such as the Dakpo instructions on Pomen, the 15 Dakpo medicines, the lung medicine Sangtal 25, and so forth. They were passed down from Gampopa, it is said. And likewise, there's also the Four Tantras, which is the which is like the fundamental text of Tibetan medicine. And some people say that it's the words of the Buddha, some say it is a treatise, some say it is a terma. There are different ways, but if we talk about it in terms of it being a terma, the revealer was Drapa Ngünshe, and he revealed it in Dakpo. And so in terms of the lineage transmission of that, so Dakpo Rinpoche or Gampopa was also included in that lineage. And so for this reason, Gampopa, in terms of the lineage of the four tantras, the great Tibetan text, he also had an influence on its spread. Even that also, before he went forth and became a monk, from Bari Lotso and Sanka Lotso, he received secret mantra dharma teachings on chakra samvara and so forth, according to some histories. And when he reached the age of 16, his two parents insisted, you have to get married. And they really insisted that he has to get married. And so he married the daughter of Chim Jose. So he married her, and they lived together. So at that time, his primary work was caring for patients, dispensing medicine to patients, basically doing medical work. But sometimes he also did farm work, including plowing fields and such. Now, he had two children, a son and a daughter. And so they all lived as a very happy family life together. But one year, there was a smallpox epidemic. And so when the smallpox appeared, it was like an epidemic. So smallpox is a type of illness, right? So there's that epidemic. And so first the son, who had reached the age of 8, died. So first the son, and then later, then his 3-year-old daughter also died. So when he was bringing the daughter's body to the charnel ground, and then came back, his wife had also fallen ill. And no matter what medical treatments he gave her, didn't help, and she was on the verge of dying. But she was still unable to let go, unable to stop breathing. She was unable to die, unable to get better. It was a very difficult situation. So at that point, so Dr. Rinpoche or Gampopa thought to himself, she's got something that she's not letting go of. What could it be? And so he said that way. So what is you attached to? What can't you let go of? And so tell me, he said. And his wife said, what I can't let go of is you. I can't let go of you. I worry that after you die, you're going to live with another woman. That's what I'm worried about. So when she said that, Tapa Rinpoche said, you don't need to worry about that at all. From the very beginning, I've wanted to become a monk. And if you die, then I don't want to do anything other than become a monk. I don't want to do anything other than practice Dharma. Not only did he say this, in order that his wife would feel comfortable, he took a strong oath that he would not remarry and instead would go off and practice Dharma. And then after his wife died, he gave away almost all of their household possessions and money and made satsa reliquaries of his wife's bones and built a stupa. And that stupa is called the Remains of the Lady Stupa. And even now, in that day, it's there. You can see the ruins of that stupa. Then he met a Kadampa monk named Gondon Pasur. So he and Gondon Pasur They became friends and they went to Dapo together. And then in Dakpo, there was a lama named Mario Leru Shirap. Who acted as the Kempo. There was a Geshe Jeshu Sempa who was the Acharya. And so at the age of 26, when he had reached the age of 26, so this was in 1113 in terms of the Western calendar, and he took the complete ordination at once. And what that means is that on one day he took the vows of going forth and the novice and the bhikshu all on the same day, on the same time on the same day. So that's what we call complete ordination at once. In the Tibetan tradition, when someone becomes a monk or a nun, then at that time, we recognize it as like beginning a human life. And so they give up their old lay name, and the guru or the Kempo who gives them the vows then gives them a new name. So Gampopo was given a new monastic name, and that was Sonam Rinchen. So he's called Sonam Rinchen. So at that time, his friend Gongtun, right? As I mentioned, there was his friend Gongtun. And Gongtun said to Gampopa, he had an idea. The Acharya, Chanchu Sempa, who was Acharya when he took the vows, he said there's a Guru Milarepa who has really exceptional instructions. So Milarepa is a siddha. So let's see if we can get this. You got to see if you can get the that siddha's instructions. And so Gampopa said, we don't have any offerings that we can make in order to give the teaching. So I don't know if he's going to give us any teachings. So Gongtun is someone who always had a lot of ideas. I said, no, don't worry about that. Just go and ask. Everybody ask. And when he's giving some instructions to someone else, maybe he'll give them to you too. And so he shared that image. So then Gampa asked Geshe Sempa, said, please give me instructions on meditation. And when he asked him that, then the Geshe gave him the teachings. And Gampopa followed the instructions, and within 7 days, he developed good experiences with Shada meditation. So it was after 7 days after beginning to meditate. Had good experiences, body and mind were very, very comfortable and very clear. He had these experiences of bliss and clarity. So much that he didn't know the day or night. His mind is so clear, his body was so clear, light, so he hardly knew whether it was day or night. And so Chanchu Sempa said, I've had these experiences, he said to his master, Chanchu Sempa. So have I really developed meditation? And so Chanchu Sempa said, oh yeah, you've developed meditation. So at that time, he stayed with his friend Gongtun. So Gongtun said to him, he looked at him and said, something different about him. And he looked a little different. And when he saw that, Gongtun said, something's happened to you. Something happened to you. So please tell me what happened. Please tell me what you did. So that's what he said. And when Gongtun said that, then Gampopa said, oh, I've developed meditation. I've had such meditation with this. And he explained how he developed meditation. And Gongtun, his friend, an infant, got kind of excited about that. And I said, okay, I'm also going to do meditation. I'm going to meditate. And if I don't develop meditation, either I'm going to develop meditation or I'm going to die on this very bed. And he probably asked Gampopa for instructions on the medicine when he did the meditation. He also developed really strong experiences of resting and meditation. And one of the things, he was so excited about this that he wrote on his bed, I, Gongton, exhausted samsara here today. And he wrote this on letters. So there's that story about that. And so during that time, Gampopa's meditation got better and better. It got clearer and clearer. Until he was able to meditate for as long as he wished. Like for 5 or 6 or 7 days, he would be distracted by the appearances of samadhi, so distracted that he'd forget to eat for like 5 or 6 or 7 days. It was because of the pleasure of samadhi, the bliss of samadhi, he was distracted that he forgot to even eat food. And the afflictions never stopped arising manifestly, and they're like they'd been suppressed. And so in his body, he had no pleasure. He had the pleasure of samadhi, but he didn't feel any pleasure from form, sound, or scent, or so forth. So at that time, so one day he was checking to see, how long can I do? How many days can I meditate? He said, and he said, and so he was able to meditate continually, not without stopping, for 13 days. So that's something that Gampopa said. So when Gampopa was 28, he thought to himself, my meditation's got really good. But it said that the Kadampas it said that they're well versed in the instructions, where they have good instructions on the conduct of a bodhisattva, and I should study that. And he and Gongton went together. So his friend Gongton and he, right? They went down to central Tibet in U. And they went to the area of Chang, which is a Pendo Phundutsong in these days. So Pempo, as I mentioned the other day, it's like the source of the Kadampa teachings. All of the most famous Kadampa geshes lived there. That's where they all they came to there. And so first, Kadampa met the Kadampa Geshe Nyugrumpa. So he was one of the students, the 3 great students, a student of Chengawa. And his actual name was Tsundrubar, but the place he stayed was called Nyugrum. And so because he lived at Nyugrum, he was called Nyugrumpa. And so that's what people called him. And so from Chengawa, so Gampopa requested from Nyugrumpa the teaching on the Kadampa stages of the path, and in particular relative bodhicitta. And when he received the teachings on relative bodhicitta, from that time on, for the entire rest of his life, he was never without bodhicitta, he said. So from that time onward, for the rest of his life, he practiced bodhicitta. And so from that time on, he went to Gyachariwa, a student of Geshe Langtamba. He received from many instructions from Atisha, including Hayaguru and Vajrapana, and secret mantra teachings. In particular, he had the empowerment of Gompo Duku. And on the night after he'd taken that, he had a vision of seeing Gompo. And Gyachariwa said, also had very good dreams. And he said to them, after I gave you the empowerment, on that night, I had some really good dreams. And they're like signs and indications that my own misdeeds have been purified. So I think your being and your realization are at a higher level than mine, he said. So at that time, Langtamba was a student of Potawa. Langshara. So Langtara and Sharawa were the two main students of Potowa. And among them, Langritampa, he was the author of the 8 verses on training the mind that we all know and practice. And so Geshe Langritampa only practiced bodhicitta, or primarily practiced that. And so when Gampopa was staying with him, he was around the Langtang, in the area around the Langtang monastery. All the birds and all the other animals, none of them ever harmed one another. On the day that Langritampa, an old woman came to another from the place. An old woman from the other place came to that place, and she arrived there, and she thought, Langtampa has probably passed away. She thought. She didn't know. She hadn't heard it. She had just arrived, and she looked at him. Langtampa must have passed away, because when I came here on the road, I saw animals killing with each other. I never saw that before. I saw that. So Langtampa probably passed away, she said. And so he must have been a great bodhisattva. Gyachariwa was one of his students. Now, there were some really good stories about Chariwa, but today I don't need to tell. Maybe I'll tell you tomorrow. Gyachariwa was one of the students of. There's a really good story about Chariwa when he was a student of Langtang. So maybe I'll tell you that tomorrow. So over the course of a few years, Gampopa spent many time in Kadamba monasteries, and so he was living with many different people, and because that was the condition, so his previous meditation actually deteriorated. So it's like his meditation. Not only did his meditation not get better, it got worse. And so he began to really worry about that. And because he got worried about that, there was a Geshe Gyayunda who was primarily practiced meditation. And so we went and asked him about the meditations. So he went to Gyayunda. So Gyayunda primarily taught in the stages of the path and how to meditate on these, and gave him the instructions on this. And so when Gampopa meditated, and so it's like he was able to restore his meditation improved. Still, but the meditation that he was doing at that time was primarily impermanence and the defects of samsara. The meditation is a stage, is a path. And since he was only meditating on those, because of that, he began to feel a real sense of urgency, and his mind was filled with a wish for emancipation and world worth. So his earlier experiences of bliss and of clarity decreased somewhat. So that is how it happened. So in any case, he studied with many different gurus. And when he was thinking about this, well, there are many different ways to practice the Dharma, but among them, the meditation practice is the most important. And so it made the resolve to only engage in meditation practice, and he went to his homeland. And on the way to his homeland, he said he went to the Geshe Jeba, and received the instructions on White Tara. So when you do the White Tara practice, that from the Atisha practice, the lineage comes from that originates from Geshe Jepa. So then he went to his homeland. And when he went to his homeland, there's the ruins of his parents' house. He built a retreat house, a retreat cabin there, and he stayed there during meditation. And so his previously he'd had experiences of bliss and clarity that had decreased, that diminished or deteriorated, and so they then kind of were restored, and his meditation got better and better. And so in his dreams, he also saw the signs of achieving the 10th Bodhisattva level that are explained in the Light of Gold Sutra and the Sutra and the 10 Levels and so forth. And we had so many different dreams. Gampopa thought to himself, I haven't achieved the levels, but so why am I having all these dreams? Are they dreams from just a mental confusion, or are they like emanations of ghosts? Or so you begin to worry about this. So there are so many different signs. And so there are many such different signs and indications in his dreams. Now, one most important thing there, the most really important question that which is studied with many different gurus, but so when did he start to follow Guru? Where is Milarepa? So how did Gampopa follow Milarepa? This is important. So if we ask, how did this come about? So generally, Gampopa had heard about heard the name of Milarepa and his deeds, and so he had faith for him, but the condition that made it so feel like he really absolutely had to go see Milarepa was the story of the three beggars. So what happened is that Gampopa had gone to his homeland. He was doing practice and did spend a long time doing practice. So one day, the place that he was practicing was probably in Chokri, and so there's a place called. So he went off to go for one day. He went to take a rest, and so he went for a walk. And there was a place where the three beggars got together. And so the beggars, they were killing the lice. Like when you never wash, of course you get a lot of lice. So they're killing the lice, and they were complaining, and they're always talking and commiserating with each other. And he saw these beggars. Then among them, there was one of them. The first beggar said, what he said was, "Oh, we have no merit at all. Just if we had merit, and then we would have to, without needing to look for it, we'd get some sort of a nice piece of tsampa dough and some nice soup. There'd be nothing better than that. So wouldn't it be wonderful if that happened?" And then the second beggar said, no point to any of that. That's just like making aspiration. What point to that? What's better than that? So we need to be born as the son of the Lord of Nadat City. So this is the king of Nadat City. So this is like, and so, so there's no longer an emperor, but there's still the original. So at that time, there's a Nadat City. And so that's, we have to go see. So we have to be born in that family, is what they're saying. And the third is, what's so good about being Sete? He's going to have to die someday. What would be better than that? What we really need to hope for is Milarepa. Milarepa doesn't even need to wear any clothes. It's said that the Dakinis bring him the food. He has no fear of birth or death. If something just happened to me, then if I became like that, then that would be great, wouldn't it? That would be wonderful. So this beggar said that. And Gampopa listened to listen to the conversation that they were having. And when they started speaking about Milarepa, and he heard that, he got goosebumps, and it's like he started to cry, shedding tears. That Milarepa, I have to go. If I don't go see Milarepa in this lifetime, just wouldn't be right. So this really strong feeling or strong longing that he had to do this. And so as he did this, and so he went to the beggars and said, "There's the sitter there." He's like, "Where is he? How can I go and see this sitter?" When he asked him this, one beggar said, "Milarepa is probably in the mountains in Jindan, Yanam." And so he gave that to Gampopa said, "No, sir, if that's the case, so please take me there. Is it okay if you take me there?" And the beggar said, "You're young. You're so young. We wouldn't be able to keep up with you. So you go alone. And when you get to Latu, you'll hear where he's been because he's so well known. So just ask someone and you'll learn where he is." And so that's what happened. And so when that Gampopa was like really, really happy, really delighted. And he gave the three beggars like really as much food as they could eat. He gave them as many presents as he could. And said, and so the next day thought, I need to speak to them again the next day. But the next day it's like they had disappeared. Who knows where they'd gone? No one knew where they'd gone. And so Gampopa said, "Oh, those three beggars are probably Milarepa's emanations. They're either messengers or emanations. They're not just ordinary people." And so he seemed to say this. So this is the primary condition for him to meet Milarepa, is this conversation with the three beggars. So from tomorrow, I'll speak about how he met Milarepa and how Gampopa did meditation practice and realized the nature of the Dharmata, or the nature of the things. So how he went to Dala Gampo and nurtured an assembly of students, and also how he passed into Nirvana. So I'll tell that tomorrow. There's still a little bit of time tomorrow, but I think it's probably better to do it that way. Otherwise, yesterday I got a little bit tired. Working really hard yesterday. As I worked too hard, and the old teacher got a bit tired. So probably better for me to rest a little bit first.